Okay, the reason why I do this camera thing is I've got, like in the regular church, we got some folks that can't be here on Wednesdays, don't travel in, and I put this up on my webpage and my YouTube channel so that they can watch it. I've had folks tell me on occasion that they've come to the class, enjoyed the class, and then went back out and told so-and-so to look this up, hook to that, give it a look. So, so I'll record these and put them out on my Facebook page is Scott Rathkamp Christian Apologetics, or my YouTube channel, which is just Rathkamp Apologetics. And you can see all of these classes. All right, so we're searching for the soul. Are we conscious beyond the grave? That's really what this all what triggers this whole thing is one of the three basic questions. Where did I come from? Why am I here? And where am I going? I can't imagine anyone that gets through life without asking this question. Am I conscious before the grave? Beyond the grave? Maybe there's some folks that don't want to ask it, but I think everybody does. In order to answer that question, we're going to delve into a couple of technical issues. Physicalism versus dualism. These are two different ways of looking at this whole concept of where's my soul, where's my brain. Let's start by looking at the physical. Physicalism is basically saying I derive all of my information, all of my evidence from things I can touch and hold physically. If I can touch it, smell it, feel it, whatever, then I'm okay with that. If I can't, then I don't use the evidence. So a physicalism person will look at time, space, and materials. Let me explain where that comes from. What's the first verse in Genesis? Anybody? All right. In the beginning, God created heavens and the earth. Okay. Three things were created: heavens and earth, and the beginning. The beginning was literally the beginning. Prior to the creation of the universe, there was no such thing as time as we know it now. So three things: the time, space, literally all the space of the universe, material. Technically, it's material / energy, because you can transform energy and material back and forth. But TSM is what you'll see most often for saying the universe and everything in it, everything you could possibly collect with your senses. And that's often called materialism. So a physicalist will believe that. A physicalist person assumes then that the brain is a machine composed of chemical compounds that are controlled only by the laws of chemistry and physics randomly. Basically what they're saying is this gray, mushy stuff up here is a whole bunch of nerves and neurons and synapses and glial bodies and all the other stuff that is acted by chemical things, chemistry. Having a thought is just a matter of neurons firing off and a whole bunch of connections making. If you could put a little picture of lighting up nerves as they fired, you'll see this network of lights come on when you say dog, and then the network will change a little bit when you say cat, and so forth. So all of these nerves firing produces networks of electrical activity in your head, and the laws are controlled only by chemistry and physics. Why? Because they only believe that time, space, material exists. That means that literally all of our thoughts, perceptions, actions, intents, beliefs, they're a product of our brain's randomly initiated operations. Randomly initiated. Basically what that means is we are dancing to our own DNA. We're basically saying that the chemistry of our body, what we are built up of, everything in there, derived from the instruction set called the DNA. Everything that we experience, even our thoughts and musings and whatnot, are controlled by the chemistry, which is ultimately controlled by the DNA in the body. And it's random. There's nothing we can do to start it or stop it. It just happens. It happens by the laws of chemistry and physics. Okay? So this is the physicalism point. But the problem is that violates the law of non-contradiction laws. When the universe was created along with it were a whole bunch of laws. For example, if I drop that knife, it falls, okay? What is the law that's causing that to happen? The law of gravity. If I sit there and drop it one more time, gravity is not going to say, no, that's enough, I ain't pulling it down anymore. It's not going to fall, okay? So law basically says it's going to happen, whether you like it or not. It happened yesterday, today, and tomorrow. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't say, I don't believe in gravity, and start rising up out of the chair. Come back, think, No. So the laws are what was created at the point in time when the universe was created, and those laws, they're constant. There's about 15 or 20 verses in the Bible I can quote to say that those laws, God is what he is, he doesn't change, he doesn't deceive, he doesn't lie, all these things. There are some things that are characteristics of God before creation. And those things are called first principles. And one of them is the laws of logic. You've heard of logic before. There's 3 laws of logic: the law of identity, exclusive middle, and non-contradiction. And these are things that apply even if we didn't have the universe. They apply. If something is talking to us from outside the universe, it applies. Let me give you an example. Law of non-contradiction. I cannot speak a single word of English. That's a contradiction. When you turn the question right in on itself, it's a contradiction. It cannot be true. My biological parents had no children that lived. Hello, I'm right here. Okay, so you see what the law of non-contradiction is? This violates the law of non-contradiction because we have things like original thoughts, because there is something outside of the universe, because one of the other laws that's characteristic of God himself is causality, cause and effect. What triggered the universe? God's cause is now the effect called the universe. So the law of non-contradiction violates this physical concept. Look at the dualism side. Dualists, which is what most of us are, believe that humans have a physical body and an immaterial mind or soul. You'll hear Christians and most theists call it soul. Agnostics and atheists will call it mind. But a non-materialist, I'm getting ahead of myself, won't believe, a non-materialist will not believe that. All right, so the soul hypothesis, the idea of there being something outside of what I can touch, taste, and feel, goes way back, all the way back to the founding fathers, Augustine, Aquinas, Newton, Galileo. These folks all believed and wrote and did their scientific research and their theological teachings based on the concept that mankind is a dualistic animal, has both a body and a soul. Psychologists, when they start studying children, they begin at the age of about 4 to 6 years old, to see examples of something outside of the physical body. They're beginning to see things that say, hey, wait a minute, this is happening in the mind, and it's triggering thoughts, not randomly, but on purpose. Things are beginning to happen in the mind that are not being triggered randomly. Prior to that, they act all different ways. If you do not have dualism, then all of your actions as animals, living things, is basically instinct. You're programmed to act this way. You eat, you grow up, you reproduce, you die, and nothing else seems to matter to them. So it's not instinct, but they're beginning to see something outside talking to these kids, starting at 4 or 6 years old. Now, modern science, and when I say modern science, I'm talking about the secular world, or the combination agnostic, atheistic, don't care. And by the way, the percentage of folks that don't care is growing every year by huge, huge numbers. Modern science rejects anything outside of TSM. They're saying that's an allegation you're making and it doesn't have the evidence. Evidence is void. What do you mean the evidence is void? Well, they're saying if only TSM, what I can touch and feel, time, space, and material, if that's the only evidence that I will accept, then having something affect my brain from outside can't be there, can't be true. Okay? So they deny it by ignoring an input. But TSM cannot prove that outside TSM doesn't exist. If time, space, material is everything, what made everything? Where did it come from? Who triggered it? How did we get here? If you're going to prove that something is out there, if I asked you to prove that there's a class going in across the hall, what do you need to do in order to say it is going across the hall?
I can see it.
Because you physically can walk in there and exist it and feel it and see it and touch it. But if you say there is nothing outside of this classroom is TSM, there doesn't exist across the hall, then how can you say that something does or doesn't exist out there that doesn't exist? You see the non-contradiction here? Statements like that literally refute themselves. All right, so lack of TSM cannot prove that there is nothing outside. Let me explain that. Self-denial, this is what's happening. Self-denial says, if you don't believe something, XXX, if you do not believe that there's a classroom across the hall and don't believe that that can be true, then any evidence from across the hall can be accepted. If we don't know, if we absolutely believe that there's nothing outside this classroom, and someone knocks on the door, comes in, sticks his head and says, "Hi, I'm outside in your classroom." Well, I can't accept that. He didn't just come in. Why? Because I know there's nothing out there. Because there's nothing out there, he couldn't possibly come in the door. What we just saw of a person coming to the door was a figment of our imagination. It doesn't exist. Forget it. That's what we're up against. So the question then is your worldview, the way you view your world and the way you process information, is it secular or theistic? Remember the first guy in space, the Russian Yuri Gagarin? One of the first things he said after he achieved orbit was, I looked for God. I looked for God all over the place. I didn't see God. Therefore, there is no God. Buzz Aldrin, also in space, he's reading Bible. He's reading Psalms 8. He's talking about the magnificence of God's creation. So that's the difference between someone who believes there's something outside of TSM and one that does not. So from the Bible, what do we get? Matthew 10:28. And do not fear those who can kill the body. Do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both body and soul. Okay? So if there's a soul, then there's somebody out there, and that somebody can take out both the body and the soul. All right. The creator that created the universe. If we go through all the logic, and I have a course on this too, you go through all the logic and the reasoning, the evidence that says God created the universe, what you really find, if you don't believe in God, but you believe that something created us, the universe, what you end up with is an uncaused first cause who is all knowledgeable, all present, all powerful, caused TSM to come into existence. If that's true, then there is evidence for the soul. Okay? So first we got to understand that in order to get to the evidence for the soul, we've got to first get over the hump of understanding that it literally takes an uncaused first cause to cause the universe to come into existence. All right? Just kind of stretch your head a little bit. You should leave here tonight with a slight headache. All right. Consciousness then is outside of brain activity, right? So in order to have these thoughts, it's got to be outside of brain activity, because brain activity is just chemicals, laws, dancing to your DNA. Things like original ideas, music, art, stories, events, desires. These things that are totally original to you without random starting. Original idea, a piece of music. It could not possibly have been programmed into you. Mozart didn't write Eine kleine Nachtmusik without having some sort of creative thing taking place in his head. It had to come from somewhere. Anytime you have an original idea, music, art, stories, events, and desires, these are examples of chemical reactions taking place in your brain that were not triggered by chemical reactions or physical laws, being triggered from something that's not there. The smell of coffee, the color red, taste of watermelon, thrill of a bungee jump. There's all sorts of things that if you study psychology, it's clear this is not coming through chemistry. It's you're seeing it, images and whatnot in your brain, but what triggers that, what originally is the source of, hey, what about, is outside of your brain. You hear this quite a lot. Well, I guess you just had to be there. You know, if you're not able to conceive of something and you hear about it and you don't understand it, well, you don't understand it for a reason. It wasn't your idea. You can learn about it, or you just had to be there. Intelligence and design, the ability to have thoughts, think them through, look at different alternatives, do a what if I do this and this, or what if I do that, that, and that, where do I end up? Making a decision. These are all examples of intelligence and design. If I showed you a picture of the Grand Canyon, mile wide, mile deep, hundreds of miles long, beautiful formations, lots of layers. Was that designed by a person? No, that's random. But if I show you a picture of the presidents on Mount Rushmore, was that erosion? Freezing, water, wind? No, that's a design. You can tell, we can tell in our hearts and our minds. We can tell when we got design and intelligence, right? All right, so that starts the path of the difference between the mind, which is kind of chemistry, and the soul, or something outside of the mind. Let's look at the soul side of this. Do we have a soul? Well, the materialistic worldview says no. If you talk to any scientist, philosopher, the guy that was in the wheelchair that wrote that book about time, Stephen Hawking, remember? You talk to, they honestly believe in a materialistic world. They live in a materialistic worldview. You do not have a mind. You do not have you do not have a soul, which is running your mind in the lump of matter called brain. And they truly believe that. And when they hear evidence that doesn't fit with that, their standard answer is, well, we just got to study it some more. We'll find an answer sooner or later. Okay. And in lots of cases, that's true. I mean, we used to think that the Earth went around, or excuse me, the sun went around the Earth. And then along comes Galileo and Copernicus and those folks. Whoops, we flipped over. All right. So it is possible through more research to get better answers to understand stuff. But they'll say only if those evidences I can touch, see, taste, feel, measure, hold. Only in TSM. A theistic worldview says yes. Theistic being the Greek word for godly. A theistic worldview says yes, we do have a soul. A Christian worldview, and this is where we stand out from the crowd. A Christian worldview says, I am a soul, and at this point in time, I have a body. And that's the whole basis of the Christian concept. The fact that I'm here now in this body is merely one of the stages in the life of my soul. And I can dump the body later and I can keep the soul and keep on going. So that's really the difference between a Christian worldview and a materialistic or theistic or secular worldview. I actually am a soul, and I happen to have a body right now. And it's wearing down fast. All right. Our soul gives us free will. All right. This is a basic question that comes up often. Actually comes up within the church a lot between the Calvinists and the other guy. Anyway, the concept of free will. Do we really have the ability to decide to do something on our own? What we're saying now, do I have some aspect of my brain that, even though it's not triggered randomly, that I can choose to do something? All right? No, it's not a random happening. I can actually make a decision and choose to do something of my own free will. If that's true, then there is something above and outside of the brain itself that we can call a soul, if we accept the fact that there is a uncaused first cause, God, reaching to us through that soul to say, hey, do this. All right. The materialistic worldview says free will is just an illusion. If you talk to these folks that are secularists, atheists, agnostics sometimes, they will tell you that there is no such thing as free will. It's you're running on random, and your chemistry is controlling it, and the laws of physics determines what happens. There is no such thing as free will. There are a number of people in the church that will accept the fact you have a soul, but you still don't have free will because it's all been decided for you. Right? These are the fatalists, the ones who say, hey, my fate was determined at birth, and there ain't nothing I can do about it. That's another whole class. All right. We think we are acting freely, but we're only doing what our DNA and environment makes us do. So that's the materialistic worldview. It looks like free will. We think it's free will. We kind of feel like it's free will. But if we can sneak a look into our head, it's just a random event, not really free will. This is called hard determinism. That basically means everything you are and do and think and say and whatever is deterministic. It's been determined for you, or it's being randomly triggered. The doctrine that human actions and choices are causally determined by forces and influences over which a person exercises no meaningful control. That's the technical definition. What does that really say? It means that everything you do, think about, choices you make are initiated and determined by forces and influence of which you have no control. And it's amazing the number of people that will go through life believing this and being perfectly happy with it. When faced with a decision, they just, oh, what'll be will be. Whatever's been picked out for me, that sort of thing. So let's look at this position, this concept, see if it passes the logic test. Is hard determinism internally consistent? If I am a person that believes in hard determinism, is that internally consistent with the rest of my knowledge? Well, no. If everything we thought we have if every thought we have is just an illusion, why do we believe them? If I honestly think that every thought that I have just randomly come around happens, why am I bending over backwards to try to do some of these thoughts? If we have a conversation among 2 or 3 different people, and you think one thing and I think another, why should I believe your opinion? I have my own random thought. It's not consistent. It's not consistent. So are they internally consistent? No. Is it externally consistent? Does it make sense in the world around us? No. If every decision we make is just an illusion, then why do we continue making effective decisions? We make very effective decisions. on finances, health, careers, driving. Trust me, just driving around here, you're making a lot of really good decisions. And if you stop making good decisions, you're in a world of hurt, right? We make very good decisions. That is indicative of the fact that our triggering of thoughts is not random. It is under our control. It is under our free will. I can choose to drive on the left side of the road, but I won't do it for very long. All right. Can we apply it to our lives? If our actions are based on our illusory decisions over which we have no influence, then we can't be held responsible when we go wrong or be rewarded when we do something right. If every thought I have is just randomly chemistry, physically doing its thing, suppose I get up in the morning and go shoot someone. Hey, I didn't make it. It's random. You can't hold me responsible for that. And then, unfortunately, they don't. He's back on the streets in a day or two. Yep. Anyway, but you see where I'm going here. There's no such thing as responsibility, accountability anymore. If everything we think of and if we act on the thoughts we think of, then you can't possibly right or wrong. You're just going for the flow. I'm dancing with my DNA. What about the brain acting all by itself? Can it pass the logic test? We looked at the conscious thoughts. Now let's look at the brain itself, that gray lump. Is it internally consistent? No. My first person perspective is that there is no first person perspective. That's a fancy way of saying, do I exist? Am I really here? When someone asks you the question, I'm not sure that I exist. Ask them the question, who just said that? Oh, to exist. Okay? There is no such thing as an existence or first person perspective if the brain is only working on someone that's outside the influence. To deny consciousness is a conscious decision. To stand up here and say, I deny consciousness. How did you consciously come to that decision? Remember I said about non-contradictory logic? Trust me, the TSM worldview is full of non-contradictory statements. And the easiest way to kill them is to turn around and put them back to themselves, point it back to themselves. Is it externally consistent? No. Brains by themselves don't write books, have desires, make plans, experience disappointment. A brain in a bottle is not going to write a book. Okay, even if you kept it hooked up, so it was having beta waves and theta waves and alpha waves, it's not going to write a book. It needs something to trigger it in a form or fashion that is outside of TSM. Conscious people do. They use their brains and their minds. Can we apply it to our lives? Well, no. We live as though we have a unique and valid perspective of the world. Each one of you sitting in here right now believes that you have a unique and valid perspective of the world around you. And we're all a bit different. We're all looking at the world slightly different. We interpret the world differently. But we have it, it's unique, and it's valid to you. And if I'm willing to sit down and listen to you, you can probably explain it to me. And I can disagree with you, but that's a conscious decision. All right, anyway. And we treat others the same way. We live as though we have a unique and valid perspective, and we treat others the same way. That means when someone says, you know, I feel a little bit different about that. If we're fair and honest, we should say, okay, tell me about it, as opposed to saying, no, you can't. Mine's the only way. Okay? So can't apply it to our lives. That means we have a mind. We are conscious. Why? All right. I believe we have a mind because God has a mind. He gave us one too. His image is our soul. When we say, in fact, I'll do that next. We're going to be talking about the in His image, God's image. God basically gave to us that ability to outside reach and touch that He wants us to use to get back to Him, so that we can know and experience free will. It says, why should God want us to have free will? I mean, He can make this whole planet a lot happier if He just made everybody behave. But He didn't. If He told us all, I want you to run this way and that way, never step out of line, bingo, we got a happy planet. Why didn't He do that? Why did He give us free will? We've got a couple of ladies in here that ask you to remember back when you were dating. Did anyone here have a boyfriend that wanted you to be their girlfriend, that you really didn't want him to be much more than just perhaps a friend? And they'll try hard and try hard and try hard. I'm going to make you love me. Is that possible? Don't say, he's right here. Is that possible? Can you force anyone to love you? Bottom line is, you cannot possibly experience love in either direction unless you have the free will to choose it. So why would God want us to have the free will to choose anything? What's the greatest commandment? Love your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. He wants us to choose to love Him. And the only way God can know that we have chosen Him is through our free will. Because a lot of us choose not to. So that is basically the reason why we have free will, which is a function of the soul, which is basically that communication pipeline to God. It's, I think that, yeah, so that we can know Him and love Him and search for Him and seek Him out. Okay. So the ability of God to recognize those who really want Him because of free will, which He enabled through the Holy Spirit into our soul. Something that kind of, which that raises the question then, what exactly is the difference between the soul of animals and us? Okay, and I'll do that next very event. You got any questions before I change slides? All right, let me do a quick swap up here. I want to talk about the image of God. Two different texts. Okay, swap over to another presentation. Hopefully I got enough time to finish it. All right, so the question then is, if I have a soul, and if that soul, that communications channel between my gray matter thing called the brain, which does in fact act just on chemistry and physics, but apparently the soul adds the ability to trigger thoughts and feelings and so forth. That soul-God communication challenge is, I believe, called the image of God. If you look at the word soul itself, look at the word soul in the Bible, all the way back to Genesis chapter 1, verse like 9 or 10 or 11. Basically, God created creatures in the sea. And if you look at creatures are probably things that to us would mean like ants and flies and salamanders and worms and stuff like that. These are things that are programmed. They literally have a programmed life. They're born, they do some stuff, they accomplish something that was programmed to do, they eat, they reproduce, and then they die. Okay, and most of the living objects on our world are, in fact, creatures that are instinctually driven, program driven. Then in the next verse, he said he created animals. And the word for animals is nafesh in Hebrew. And nafesh is used in lots of different ways. Anywhere from someone who is marginally soulish, exhibits activities which would lead you to believe that you probably have a soul, all the way up to mankind. That's nefesh. But somewhere along the line, there's a difference between being soulish and being in the image of God, soulish. And how do you find that line? What makes us different? I can think of animals that have soulish characteristics. For the definition a working definition I use for soul is the ability to establish functional relationships. If an animal has the ability to establish functional relationships, they are beginning to exhibit soul characteristics, okay? Because relationships tend to be triggered from outside your brain. If you're sitting by yourself in a brain with nothing else around you, you don't think, I really want to have a family that I can gather around and love and enjoy time with. Birds, I mean, there's some birds that have soulish characteristics that literally they join together for life. And if for some reason or other their mate is killed, that's it, they're done. Porpoises in schools, elephants. Now, there's a family herd of elephants. I mean, there are many, many cases documented where if a young elephant dies, that mother elephant will stand there over that baby for sometimes days. The herd will move on, and she's just grieving the loss. Okay? So, and that is a relationship establishment, all right? But the difference really is, I may have this example in here. Elephants can grieve, but elephants don't seek out grief counseling because they know what they're feeling, but they don't know why they're feeling it. And that's the difference between the soulish soul and the image of God soul. I stole this document from a fellow by the name of Dr. Ken Heathley, and I think it's pretty good, so I'm going to enjoy stealing it and passing it on to you. I love dogs. We're going to look at 4 dogs and 4 attributes. This is Pete, and Pete is the intelligent dog. This is Rusty. Rusty is the loyal dog. And this is Butch. Butch is the intuitive dog. And unfortunately in life, you've also got to have a little bit of Harry. Harry is the evil dog. Harry makes your life miserable, runs up thousands of dollars of vet bills, barks and bites everyone that comes over the house. That's Harry. But finally, Harry passed away. So we said, thus ends Harry the Chinese crested, in whom we had much invested. He couldn't stay, he had to go. Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. So yeah, we've got a little bit of Harry, but we can get Harry to pass on. We can be a little bit more like Butch and so forth. All right, so what is the image of God? That's the fancy word you learn in college, the imago Dei, which is the image of God in Latin. There's several components. There's an intellectual component, which means the humans possess the ability to reason and think logically. Remember I said logic, the 3 basic laws of logic, laws of cause and effect. Those are actually characteristics not of the universe, not DSM, but of the creator of the universe, God. Those laws, those characteristics, they exist even if the universe didn't. All right? And our Bible tells us that. They don't say, God can love or God likes to love. They say God is love. God is justice. God can't lie. That means they are characteristics of the individual we call God, which means he had those characteristics even before he created the universe. So these are the ability to reason and think logically. When I'm saying thinking logically, I'm saying thinking like God does. All right? Thinking like God does. So the elephant or the child is grieving, but they're not thinking like God does. They're not understanding how it means in the bigger scheme of things. They're not seeking out grief counseling. They're not turning to the Bible to get answers. There's a relational component. Human beings relate to God, themselves, other people, and other creatures. We've got relationships, gazillions. I mean, dogs may relate to me as a pet owner, may think that I'm the greatest thing in the world. I would love to be what he thinks I am. And they can form a relationship. But at the same time he's having a relationship with me, he's not adoring the cat next door. Okay? So yeah, other animals do form relationships. They do form family groups. They stick together. Watching monkeys prune and pull the bugs off of each other. But anyway, so they form relationships, however gross they may be. But us, we have relationships not only to other people and other creatures. Yeah, we love the dog, we love our family, but we actually learn to love ourselves and relate to God, learn to love Him. So one of the relational component is this extraordinary relationship. It has a spiritual component. Humans recognize a reality beyond the physical universe. I'm not sure how to even say it. I put down a couple of dogs that got sick and couldn't make it anymore. And they sat on my lap while they injected it. Whew. As they were passing on, their tail was wagging. That's a relationship that understands that this is great, but there's something bigger and better. I'm happy. We're the only ones that have that kind of reality. And there's a moral component. Humans inherently understand the right and the wrong and have an innate sense of justice. There are no other animals that have an innate sense of justice. If you saw a guy running down the road, talking on his phone, not paying attention to everything, trips on a crack, falls flat on his face, phone goes scooting across, blood running up his nose, and across the street, you notice another person, notice that. And he starts jogging across the street. And you're going, that's a good thing. He wants to help that guy. He's hurting. He's going to help him. And right as he gets up to the guy, he turns to the left, grabs the phone, and runs away. Now, that's not right. That's wrong. You don't steal a guy's phone when he drops. We have an innate, I didn't have to train you to do that. I mean, trust me, that was innate. That is there. It's part of you. And other animals don't have that. When a lion kills a deer or something, he doesn't think he did anything wrong. Anyway, so we have this innate sense of right and wrong, which is the moral component. So what about me and Fido, all right? Is the difference between having a soul and being created the image of God, where that line comes back and forth, is the difference between the kinds of things, the characteristics, or in the amount, the degree. If we both have the same characteristic, but I got more than that than he has, does that make the difference between image of God, not image of God? Or is it a kind thing? There are some things that I can do that nobody else can do. Nobody else has the ability to do this kind of thing. Degree is easy. We can very easily define degree. If we both have the same characteristic, I can easily measure who does it better, who does it longer, who does it more consistently. and assign numbers 1 to 10 that says this is the degree. It's empirical, it's measurable. Empirical just means scientifically taking data measurements. It's quantitative, I can put a number on it. Kind, however, is messy and controversial. Trying to say someone does or doesn't have a kind of thought or behavior or characteristic, that gets a little bit stickier to try to define. For 2,000 years, there's been a debate between nominalism and essentialism. Again, big words, don't get scared. Nominalism means, hey, it's just nominal, just normal. It's just normal, not a big deal. Essentialism says, if you want to be this, you have got to have this. It's critical. You cannot be it without it. Therefore, it is essential. All right, let's look at this. Kind is a substance existing over time. When a characteristic or an animal or a rock or a table has a substance that doesn't change over time, that stays with it, then that is a kind. The first law of logic, or I said the 3 laws of logic, identity, excluded middle, and non-determination, The first law is identity. That is. That is not, is not. Sound crazy? But that's the law. If it is, it is, and if it's not, it's not. And you can't change them up. So if the first law of logic is true, and if it's consistent over time, then substance is essential. I'm just a fancy way of saying, if you have a characteristic or an ability, and it lasts over time, it's probably essential. The fact that you can tell right from wrong is an essential characteristic. It's essential. All right, kind or degree. Now, am I just more intelligent than Pete, relational to Rusty, spiritual than Bush, and less evil than Harry? Is it kind or is it a degree? No, I differ in kind. Now, I may certainly be more intelligent than Pete, but the line is not the line of a measurable quantity. We both have intelligence. Yeah, I know. He can go chase a ball. I can too, but I can chase a bigger ball. Relational. Okay, relation. I've got a dog that loves both my wife and myself. Will sit in either lap. He's got 2 relationals. But guess what? I can sit in lots of laps. I may get slapped, but I can sit in lots of laps. All right. Am I just more spiritual than Butch? Okay. Butch's spirit consists of drop that, I'll eat it. I've got spirituality nailed over Butch. Am I just less evil than Harry? I'd like to think I'm less evil than Harry. But a characteristic that changes gradually and can be measured, no, that's not kind, that's degree. I differ in kind. I used this example earlier. A family of monkeys can love, but they don't write love songs. A family of elephants can grieve, but they don't seek grief counseling. A dog can learn tricks, but he can't invent new ones. We're beginning to see the difference there between kind and degree. All right, so what do I have that Fido doesn't have? I'm going to get a little bit of college psychology on you. So big words, don't scare. Second order potential. There's a concept called meta-ontology or metacognition. What is cognition? Cognition is knowing something, basically. Ontology, this is meta-ontology. Ontology is a study of what is, right? This is a paper towel sitting on a desk that is. And there's nothing else but that. That's all it is. Ontology is what it is. What it is. Epistemology is the word that says how I learned what it is. So there's what it is and how I learned it. A hot stove will burn you. Okay? That's what it is. How did I learn it? I touched it. Yeah. Yea, verily, whoever sits on a red hot stove shall rise. There. Meta-ontology is the next level up from knowing what it is. Meta-ontology is saying why it is what it is. Why is that table, and that paper, that paper? Or why is the ability that I have to create a new song that nobody's ever heard before? Why does that exist that way? Why do I know basically in my genes what's right and wrong? That's the next level up. That's meta-ontology. Cognition is actually knowing. So ontology is what it is. Cognition is what I know or feel that it is. Most everything that is imparts to us a feeling or an understanding or a knowledge of what it is. I feel very comfortable in my knowledge that that is a table and that is a piece of paper. My cognition is very, very solid on the paper and the table. Epistemology. How did I learn what I know? How did I know that that paper's paper, the table's paper? Somebody told me. Okay? So knowing what is, knowing what I feel about or the knowledge of what is, I have to ask the question, where did I learn that from? Where did I learn that from? Did I learn it from my parents, my society, my neighborhood, whatever? And that is metacognition. How or why do I know or feel that? So when I feel that it is wrong to go steal a cell phone rather than helping the guy with the bloody nose, what it is you grab the cell phone and run. What I'm interested in is metacognition. How or why do I know that's wrong? Did anybody in here ever get trained by anybody to know you're not supposed to steal the phone from a person just at a flat place in their face and they're straight? Hopefully that was a unique enough example that you couldn't possibly have spent time thinking about that. Okay? But you still have in the gut, hey, that's wrong. That's right. So that is metacognition. Let me back up just a minute. All right. So what we're saying is the line is occurring not in quantity or degree, but kind. And the difference in kind is that the image of God, you have meta-ontology and metacognition. You not only know what is, you know why it is and why you feel that way and where it came from and everything else. That right there is what separates us from all the other animals. Okay? Dogs, monkeys, elephants, they know what is, but they never stop to think, I wonder why that is. That's what we do. And that's the imago Dei. All right, so in today's culture, personhood should mean that you have image of God. If you are a person, you have a brain and you also have a mind, and the mind has a soul, and the soul has a connection, and that connection gave you metacognition and ontology. That means you're a person. So personhood is having all of those things, and finally, the image of God. Personhood should mean you are exceptional, you're special. Of all the different animals on this planet, you are exceptional, you're different, you're unique, you have the image of God. I heard that. All right, our culture says the personhood you get, this is our culture today, our personhood you get is variable, situational. Basically, what the culture is saying is that you may or may not get personal, you may or may not get the image of God. In fact, if you go to this place and do this thing for this much time, you'll get it. But if you leave early, you'll lose it. That's situational, that's variable. Now, that's what the society tells us. What our culture says, example, is that an infant, a baby, has the potential to obtain personhood, but does not have it. Has the potential to get it, but doesn't have it. Christianity says that an infant is a person with potential. They already have the personhood given to the image of God in creation, and they also have the potential to learn all this stuff you're learning tonight. But so was the fetus. In fact, so was the zygote, that initial fertilized egg. It is also, I am a soul, and I happen to have a body. Now I've got a body and I'm going to grow. So we have it. God's image gives us personhood. We have the potential for meta-ontology, metacognition. It instills in us the desire to answer the three questions. I've already mentioned that. Why am I here? Where did I come from? Where will I go when I die? So we're all the way back to the first question we asked tonight. Why is that important? He gave us this to experience his creation and to seek him. Ta-da! Right on time. Okay. Any questions? Questions, comments? I think Mark will be back with you next week.
You had more slides than Marty?
I've got over 100 slides in my deck.
Hey, Al, can I get your car keys, man? Can I get your car keys? I wasn't able to find your car anyway, right? Hello, ladies. How you doing? Hey, I heard your voice. Oh, I was sick on Sunday. I had no energy yesterday. Thank you, son. But, I got it.